Do you have this problem? You've just spent a while implementing a really cool light and dark theme on your site. A groovy toggle switch allows the user to change between the themes. However, when the user then reloads the site, it loses all the information and it reverts back to the original theme. Well, stay tuned to find out how you can use HTML5 web storage to solve this problem. Welcome to Code Bytes. Hi, and welcome to Code Bytes, the channel that brings you bite-sized coding guides to help improve the performance and usability of your development projects. Before we get stuck in with web storage, here's a little background. So web storage shipped with HTML5, and it's a way for the browser to store information. Now this can either be done in a session or locally. And the session is, well, when you go to a site and you keep the tab open, it can take information that you put in and it can store that information. When you close the tab, that information's gone. Or the locally, where it basically stays on your machine and every time you visit the site, you can grab that information back up again. But wait, isn't that what cookies are for? Cookies used to be the go-to simple way to achieve the kind of persistence that we're talking about. However, there are two major drawbacks of using cookies, and I'll talk about them briefly now. The first one, cookies can be used to send data back to the server. This is why a lot of sites have to warn you if they're storing cookies on your machine, because they could be taking personal data and sending that back to the server to make requests. The other drawback is the capacity. Cookies only allow you to store between 2 and 4 kilobytes of data, which isn't a lot. So with that in mind, let's move on to talk about HTML5's web storage. Now web storage doesn't have the same capacity issues. You can store anything 5 megs, 10 megs, and some browsers can even be configured to allow unlimited storage. But also, they won't ever send data back to the server, so it stays on your machine. Sounds awesome, right? Well, let's get stuck in and see how we can use it. There are lots of ways of building websites and tons of different frameworks that you can use, but for this particular tutorial I'm just sticking with plain old vanilla JS. You also don't have to worry about trying to follow on with the code as I type it. There is a GitHub repository I will link in the show notes below. You'll be able to find everything there. So let's take a look at what we can see. We have a basic page here which just has an input box and a button, and then it's linked to a script. And all that script is going to do is going to take the name that you put in here, has an event handler to this button, and it's just going to display a text that's in an empty div over here. Now, when I reload, it's going to forget who I am. And that's what we want to fix. So let's jump into the code and take a look at what we need to do to make this happen. The first thing we'll do is we'll make a save to web storage function. So let's go ahead and chuck that in here. We'll call it save to web storage, which makes the most sense. And we're going to give it a value there, what the thing is that we want to save. Let's then make a function to access from web storage. And we won't need to pass anything from there. We'll just return some information. So to leverage what's inside web storage, we just have to call local storage. Now you'll see that that already exists. Now there should also be one that's called session storage. And as I explained before, the session storage will then disappear when you close that tab. So we really want something that's going to persist when this user then goes back to this site. After a while, it's still going to be there. So we just want to access local storage. And then if we want to save something to local storage, it acts like a dictionary. It takes a key and a value. So what we'll do is we have to call set item. You can see that method already exists. It's going to ask for a key and then the value. Now the value we already have. So let's pass in the value. What we don't have is a key. We'll go and get it sorted out in a moment. We'll also do the get from web storage as well. So in this case, all we're doing is we're just going to get from local storage. We're going to get the item and we're going to give it the key. Now we don't still have a key. I'm just going to call it key for now. And what we'll do is we will define a global constant to be a key. So let's make a key, and we're going to call this key. Now this is what's going to be used for this particular site. So I'm going to call this key maybe something like name. Now you might have different keys if you're storing other pieces of information. For example, you might have a theme key because you're storing themes. I'm only having one key right now, so I'm just going to call it name. So the next thing I need to do is on click, when I've set the user input to be what I want it to be, I need to save that to web storage. So I'm going to save to web storage the value. Now if I go back to the browser, you'll see I can put in the name, submit that, but it won't persist. However, we can take a look at the inspector and see what's going on. So you'll find your storage over here in application. So you open up your developer console, get to application, and you'll be able to go to local storage, and you'll see that it has actually been stored. It's right there. I can change that value to something else, and it's now going to store that one instead, and I can revert it back to what I had before. But it's still obviously not bringing it up, because although we've saved to web storage, what we haven't done is we haven't done that call from web storage. So we kind of need to do that when the site loads. So let's go back to the code and see how we can actually achieve this. The first thing we want to do is do a quick check to see if web storage is available, and if it's not available, then we can at least put an error in the console. Now when it wouldn't be available is if the user is using an older browser, for example. So let's just get that out of the way first. We'll say if web storage is not supported, then log an error message. The way to check to see if web storage is available or not is we do a type of storage. So what we're doing is we're checking if the type of storage is not undefined, then that means we have web storage. If it is undefined, then we will just simply log out an error message and say web storage is not supported. Let's just say that. Try and get the saved name from storage. So I'll set a variable here called save name, and that's where I'm going to store it into. That will allow me to then check what is the value of save name. So here we're going to get from web storage, you know, the method that we created here using the key constant. So that's going to check web storage, going to check the key, the name, and see if there's any value associated to it. If the user's been here before and they filled out the form, then there will be a value. If not, that value is going to be null. If it's null, we don't want to do anything. If it's not null, then we'll go ahead and we'll actually do something. So if save name is not null, then we will go ahead and set that name div that we've defined above. The inner HTML is just going to say welcome back, and we'll, give the save name. When the user goes to the site, the first thing it's going to do is going to check web storage. If web storage exists, it's going to try and get the value from web storage. If it can't get the value, it will do nothing, and you'll just get the standard, you have to insert the name in the input box. If it can, then we will display that information. So let's save that and then go back to the browser. And if we refresh the browser page, I'm welcomed back, because obviously my information is still in web storage. Now I can go ahead and remove that value completely. I can put in my name, and there I am. The value's been saved. I can go ahead and refresh that page. I'm welcomed back. So there you have it, HTML5 web storage in just a few minutes. Now, as you can imagine, this really opens up the possibilities of storing particular bits of user information like theme selections without needing to access a server or a database. However, this does come with a warning. I strongly recommend you do not store any personal user information in web storage, because as you saw how easy it was for us to go and inspect what was there, anyone who has access to the machine of the user will be able to do the same thing. With a bit of know-how, you can go into the inspector and you can see all the information in the web storage. So it's great for storing settings, language settings, time settings, theme settings, absolutely fine. But do you want to store credit card information? Not the best place to do it. Keep that stuff encrypted on a database far, far away from anyone's prying eyes. If you like this video, if you found it useful, please like and please subscribe. Tell your friends, share the link. It will really help this channel to grow. Thanks very much, and until next time, keep coding.